Hillwood is such an amazing place. Mrs. Post's bedroom was so pretty. Check out that floor plan they gave us at the visitor center, Amy. Are there any rooms we missed?
I think the second floor library is the only room we haven't visited, Frances.
Well, let's go.
I almost missed the photos in the entryway. Wow, Mrs. Post must have been very important in the D.C. area to have men like the Secretary of War sign photos for her.
Maybe she was. Let's ask Hillwood's historian, Estella Chong. Estella, what can you tell us about these photographs?
We're talking about the late 1950s, 60s, and 70s. This is a time period when, for the most part, men had authority and power in Washington, D.C., and Mrs. Post played a hand and used the authority she had by bringing these people together. That was her role in Washington, D.C. as a hostess.
Wow, Mrs. Post was influencing the elite and the politicians. That was a power most women of the day didn't have. But how did she get so many influential people to Hillwood?
So a key point to think about in terms of men and women at Hillwood is that Mrs. Post was hosting events to support charities, and often this would either bringing the right people or people in authority together to either discuss making something happen in Washington, or people who would have money to support these endeavors.
Excellent point. Mrs. Post had the money to bring those people together in the formal rooms downstairs. Maybe when she designed this room, it was her way of creating another space for her guests after a night of dinner and dancing.
Perhaps, but let's keep exploring. Look at the pine woodwork and the beautiful carved moldings. They are similar to the library and dining room downstairs, but it feels less formal, more relaxed, and less feminine than her bedroom.
According to the Hillwood guidebook, this room was designed to feel like an English country home. That would explain the casual feel. Estella, can you tell us who Mrs. Post designed this room for?
There is the Adam bedroom, a closed closet, a sitting room, and then the library. And much of this reflects accommodation for her last husband, Herbert May.
Oh, so she designed it for her husband to use. Maybe he relaxed here while she was playing hostess to the elite of D.C., or maybe she designed it to use with him.
Did you notice all of the fox hunting portraits in here? It looks like only men are depicted in them.
These are Henry Alkin paintings. Do you know who he is?
Sure do. He painted mostly hunting and gaming portraits like these in the 19th century. Earlier I spoke with Hillwood's curator, Liana Paredes, and she told me that hunting was a noble pastime in England, one reserved for those who owned land.
Well, with the amount of land Mrs. Post owned, I bet the hunters in those paintings would have let her tag along. Or at least her daughter. After all, the portrait of Eleanor shows her in riding clothes. But Mrs. Post must have occupied her free time in other ways. I mean, she couldn't host a party every day.
Well, Liana had mentioned to me that this was the only room to ever have a television, and there is a photograph to prove it. Too bad the TV isn't in here now or any games, but this would have been the perfect den or family room by today's standards. Oh wait, look over there by the fireplace. It's a card table.
Oh yeah, that's an 18th century card table. See the embroidered playing cards and the place to hold the betting chips? I think it was used for the card game of Loo.
What's that? I've never heard of Loo.
Well, Loo was a popular card game from the 17th to 20th centuries, similar to euchre with trump cards and tricks. Everyone antes into play, and everyone bets if they want to remain in the game. The English upper class played Loo, and some lost a lot of money. But from the looks of that table, I don't think anyone has used it.
I can just imagine Mrs. Post bringing her guests into this space for an informal game of euchre or poker, maybe anteing up a few hands herself.
Maybe. I think this room, although similar to others, reflects a feeling not found elsewhere at Hillwood. It's a space where anyone could gather to relax outside of Mrs. Post's events, and her husband probably enjoyed this room as well, since it has things most men find entertaining.
Well, I think for Mrs. Post to have created this room when she did reflects something very special. In designing this getaway, Mrs. Post had the power to fashion a welcoming environment for men and women alike.